Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the 10-minute book talk, where three best-selling authors talk all things bookish with you for 10 short and sweet minutes. I am one of your hosti. I'm saying hosti because it's the plural of hostesses, just as octopi is the plural of octopuses.
It isn't
anyway,
though. They actually
I'm one of your hosti, Marie Bostwick. We also have with us Rachel Linden, Katherine Reay, and oh my gosh, you guys, I'm just beside myself with joy because we have with us today Shelby Van Pelt, whose debut novel, Remarkably Bright Creatures, is a runaway bestseller, and deservedly so. This book, I mean, it has it all. It has it all. It has, like, it's page turning. It has a mystery. It has a kind of a December romance. It has found families, and it has, yes, an octopus that talks. But enough about me. Shelby, tell us about your wonderful book.
Well, I think people are starting to know it as that octopus book. And so, it's a book about an octopus, but as we all know, of course, it's not really a book about an octopus. It's a book about people who are stuck in ruts in their lives and kind of unable to see different paths for themselves than the ones that they're on, which maybe aren't the best or healthiest ones. And it's really just about how unexpected connections and friendships can really help kind of shake us out of that. I think I took a lot of inspiration just, metaphorically from watching fish and sea creatures in aquariums and watching how they tend to kind of carve the same path around and around when they're in captivity, and sort of thinking about how we as humans do that too. And certainly the characters in Remarkably Bright Creatures are guilty of getting caught in those kinds of loops and ruts. So that's basically kind of the theme of the book.
I love it.
I love it. So I have to say, Marcellus, the octopus, does steal the show. I mean, what a character. Tell us a little about why you chose an octopus, what you learned about an octopus, what drew you to Marcellus, etc.
Well, so, fittingly, because Marcellus is, of course, an escape artist, it was really inspired by a YouTube video of an octopus doing exactly that at the Seattle Aquarium. This was many, many years ago. But, if you Google octopus escaping tank, it's a wonderful rabbit hole. Like, you could spend all afternoon watching octopuses do cool things.
That's what we're going to do after this.
I was about to say.
But yeah, I remember at the time I had just started writing fiction. And so I was sort of in this mood of being kind of like on the hunt for characters wherever I was. And I remember thinking that would make a really fun character, a really like grouchy, curmudgeonly, superiority complex, but with a hint of like boredom and kind of, intelligent curiosity. So that was really where he came from. As far as the most interesting thing that I learned, I think my favorite octopus fact is just how their brains are laid out, that their brains, instead of being kind of central like ours, are really distributed among their arms. So their arms can have different personalities. Their arms can kind of specialize in tasks. You could have a shy arm and an outgoing arm. And if you've seen the meme, which you probably have, of an octopus doing 8 different things, it's kind of a multitasking meme.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that meme basically could be true, because if you were an octopus, your arm really would be able to sort of like stir the spaghetti while you're pouring the wine over here. And I just think it's really fun that that's somehow unintentionally like accurate.
Oh my gosh, I need distributed brain octopus arms. All of us as mothers need distributed brain octopus arms.
That's awesome.
Okay, I have a question. So I love sense of place in a novel, and you have a beautiful sense of place set Pacific Northwest. What's your connection, and why did you set it here, and kind of tell us about the sense of place?
I grew up in Tacoma, Washington, which is not too far from where some of you guys are, I know. We have great little Northwest connections in this group. I love it. So it will always be home to me. I still have a lot of family there. I go back to visit quite a lot, not so much during COVID, but thankfully that is changing again now. And so I really loved the idea of this octopus, Marcellus, being captive just mere meters away from his actual home. So for that reason, I feel like I loved it and hated it, right? Like it just made the freedom closer and sweeter.
Mhm.
And so I don't think I ever considered setting it anywhere other than the Northwest, like in an aquarium
we
that's
have those
right on the
octopuses.
water.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I think I wrote a lot of this during the pandemic, particularly like the first few months of the pandemic was when I was really in this intense, trying to finish this draft, just, you know, working hours and hours a night, trying to get through it. And I was also pretty homesick during that time. You know, we had a trip scheduled for March 2020. We were going to spend my kids' spring break out in Washington. And of course that got canceled. And so I hadn't been home in quite a while. And so I think writing this story kind of allowed me to immerse myself in something that I really was missing a lot at that time.
You do a beautiful job, and it is such a pleasure when you read a book and you really have a sense of being there, you know, and you just accomplished that beautifully. But something you said earlier, and that is true, while we absolutely love Marcellus, this is not a book about an octopus. Marcellus plays a very central role in the story, and I love that metaphor. I hadn't thought about that until the, you know, going round and round, which Marcellus isn't like that, right? He's seeking new things, and so that's a beautiful metaphor. But for me, as much as I love Marcellus, this really is a story about people, about humans. There's a wonderful woman named Tova, who she is older. She is kind of trapped in grief on a couple of levels. She needs to get out of a rut. There is a guy named Ethan who runs a store. He needs to get out of a rut. And there is a young man who is, oh gosh, and his name just went out of my head right now. This is
Cameron.
What happens when you, so anyway, he is in a rut of not believing in himself, of thinking he's worthless. These characters are connected in such beautiful ways. I have to ask you, did you model any of them on real people that you knew? Tell us more about that.
I think my characters always, at a minimum, they're like bits and pieces of things that I have sort of mined from real life. In this case, the Tova character in particular is based more directly on my grandmother, who passed away a few years ago. But, you know, she was this little Swedish lady who was just always an emotion. I mean, you know, again, going back to the, you know, the fish that kind of circle and never stop, like that was my grandma. She just circulated around her house doing little chores and cleaning and cooking and, you know, drinking her coffee. And, you know, she just never sat still, and everything was always kind of just fine. You know, she was very, very sweet, but she was very stoic, like Tova. She didn't want it to be a burden on anyone. She never really let her emotions kind of peek through. And so, you know, that the character definitely came from that place in my life of someone who was very close to me. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother as a child because we lived next door and because I was an only child. So she's kind of like she was like my BFF. We hung out all the time.
I mean, they all are. All of your characters are so beautifully, beautifully drawn. I just loved everything about them. Okay, I'm gonna do a thing and get an extra question in because I can't stand it. Like this is what just is making my head explode, is this is your debut novel. This is the very first novel you have had up. It like skyrocketed on the charts. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's reading it for good reason. What has that experience been like for you as a first-time author? And like, was there a moment when you were like, oh my gosh,
this is happening.
Really,
It's happening.
It's going to be a hit.
I mean, I think the moment was when we found out that it was going to be a read with Jenna Pick. And we found that out about 3 months before the book came out. And it was this huge secret. You know, of course, all the celebrity book clubs, they really love the drama of the announcement. So, you know, there was this huge thing just kind of lurking in the background of all of these activities leading up to the launch, which was this secret that it was going to be announced on Read with Jenna. But I think when we learned that, I remembered having this moment of like, okay, like at a minimum, like so many people are going to buy this book. You know, there's numbers that are sort of attached to it just because of, you know, Read with Jenna. Those are the numbers that she gets. And like seeing those numbers in black and white in an email was just like, oh my God, like people are going to read this.
So fun.
Which, and it's kind of a, as a sort of, I guess, emerging writer, like, you know, I went from being like scared to submit some of my short stories to these obscure lit journals because I'm like, well, someone's going to read it. And what if they don't like it? To just, throwing this novel out onto a pretty big stage. So yeah, it's been wild. I mean, it's been wonderful, but just there are days that I wake up and I'm just like, this is my life. Like, this is so weird that, even to be doing something like this, sitting here with like real authors. I'm like, how is this me?
We are thrilled to
been
be
great.
sitting here with you because it is such a good book. I've been telling so many people about it. I'm not letting people leave the bookstore without it. So that's the rule with me. Okay, in just the last minute we have left, this is our final question we always ask authors on the 10-minute book talk. So Shelby Van Pelt, author of Remarkably Bright Creatures, what is bringing you joy today?
Okay, well, this is going to make me sound super basic, and maybe I am a little bit basic, but I feel like the fall leaves this year have just been out of control, especially where I am in the Midwest. And, I'm looking out my living room window at it right now. And it's brighter than it's been in the last few years, the yellows and the oranges. And it's really been giving me a lot of just a moment of joy in the morning when I'm driving my kids to school, to drive through this like tunnel of yellow golden leaves that are probably going to blow off in a couple days. I know it doesn't last, right? So
It doesn't.
I've been trying to soak it in.
Yeah.
So there's I'm a basic.
Oh, that's a
fall, crunchy leaves.
We're in the Pacific Northwest where it's all green, and you're like, look, there's a yellow tree because it's green, which is wonderful.
We get excited.
Well,
Shelby and I in the Midwest really are experiencing one of the most spectacular falls. I mean, it is
amazing.
Stunning here.
Yeah. So we don't think you're basic, and anybody who says it's going to have an answer to us.
Exactly.
So there. All right.
Take joy where you can find it.
Exactly. Shelby Van Pelt, thank you for joining us today on the 10-minute book talk. My friends, run. If you have not read this fabulous book yet, run. Do not walk to your bookstore. Get a copy of Remarkably Bright Creatures. And the other thing you need to do, absolutely, is be with us here next week on the 10-minute book talk. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Thank you.